Welcome, everybody, to another Beat Your Addiction podcast with John Giordano. I'm your co-host, Scott Jones. I want to thank you for joining us. And as you're watching today, please take a moment, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and please leave comments. Those comments are really, really important for us to see what you're thinking. If you have any questions, if there's something we missed, or if maybe you want to be a guest on the show, make sure you put it out there.
Absolutely.
John, how you doing, man?
Man, if I do any better, it's scary.
I know. Well, you've been working hard. You've got your JC Recovery project that's going really well. JCRecoveryCenter.com. Go there, and you see all the stuff we're doing. That's the latest and the greatest and evidence-based. It's not a regular treatment center. It's not only is it a faith-based, non-denominational, but we do alternative medicine. We do cold plunge, red light therapy, holotropic breathing. We do yoga. We do micronutrient testing, gut testing, heavy metal testing. We do a lot of stuff that nobody wants. Nutrient IVs. We're doing a lot of stuff, guys. So if you're interested, and you went out there and got yourself, you went out and got yourself the best facilitator on the East Coast.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't remember his name. It's some other guy. All right, John. All right, that's great. But we have a guest today, which is really awesome. Sometimes we get into different topics. This is somebody who really aligns with what you talk about, right? And works. This is and they're joining us from Mexico today. We're international now.
Chiquita banana.
Next week I'll get somebody from France, but nobody likes the French, so we're not going to do that.
All right, take an order of tacos. Okay.
All right. So anyway, what we have Joe Weatherford for us here today. She's an addiction specialist, a speaker, a coach. I've read some of her blogs and other writings. She's a constant out there on TED Talks, does TED Talks and things. Great person with a great story. Let's bring her right up here. Joe, how are you?
I'm so good. Good morning, you guys.
Good morning. First of all, thanks for taking the time to join us. It's important that we get the message out there to people about what's going on with addictions and everything, and putting some new ideas out there. So that's really what we'd like to talk about. But John, go ahead and take it away, brother.
Where am I taking it?
You take okay. She came from Mexico. At least take her for coffee.
I love Mexico.
Take her for coffee. All right.
Anyway, before the show, we were talking about you did an Ibogaine journey.
I did, and I just got back a week ago. So I was in Nicaragua for 10 days.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Cool. So you did Ibogaine yourself. Oh, for those who don't know what Ibogaine is a bush from West Africa who's used as a rite of passage from the Weedy tribe. And how it became popular, we had a heroin addict named Howard Lutzoff who wanted to find a new high, and he went to Gabron, and he took it, and the next morning he woke up totally detoxed and without cravings. So he said, wow, I can make money with this. So he went to Panama and opened up a treatment center, and he got a hold of Dr. Deborah Mash, who's a pioneer in Ibogaine medicine. And but addicts, just because we stop using drugs and alcohol doesn't mean our behaviors change so fast. And anyway, it didn't work out, and she opened up a treatment center in St. Kitts, and that's where her and I got together. And I've been working with her since 1996, doing Ibogaine treatment. And then the clients used to come to me first, and I used to put them on a heart monitor. And we used to check the heart to make sure for 24 hours, not just an EKG. Then we do a toxicology test. Then we do medicals to see how their liver's functioning, their kidneys are functioning, all of that. And then the psychosocial to see, if they're schizophrenic or the dissociative disorders, they're not a good candidate for Ibogaine. And then we used to take them to the island of St. Kitts, and we used to repeat some of the things. We used to do a toxicology test again, and all this other stuff. Then what I would do is I would do integration with them. In other words, before you do a psychedelic treatment, you need to have an intention, and you need for you to have everything that you want to accomplish in the front of your mind. All right, and that's what I would do with them. And then they would go. We would put them in a bed. We would put an IV in their arm just in case there's any kind of an event. Then we put a heart monitor on them because, you can have heart issues if you don't know what you're doing.
And then we would put eye shades on them and a headset on them to keep them in a containment field. We give them a test dose, and we wait 45 minutes to see if they tolerate it. Then we give them a full dose. Then they would come out in about 24, it was either 8, 10, 12-hour journey. And then they would come out and I would do a post therapy session with them to see what they saw in their journey and help them to figure out how that went together with their life. So that's that story. So how was your story?
Oh, God. Well, I've worked with a lot of different plant medicines since I stopped drinking. And, something like ayahuasca or psilocybin or 5-MeO, it's a very spiritual, you're connecting with God, right, and it's beautiful. And this was the exact opposite for me. It was absolute hell. And it was a completely inward journey. So I went into
right. That's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, at the deepest level. And so it was 24 hours, so 7 p.m. to 7 p.m. the next night. And we were just lying flat on a mat in silence. So you're just really, really in it. And it started off, it was everything I've ever done that was out of alignment. Here's where you lied. Here's where you cheated. Look what you did to this person. It was like somebody was going into the filing cabinet and just picking out the worst.
So you visited hell.
Absolutely.
I know.
So then it was like, okay, I can look at all this, I can feel it. And then it went into every negative thought I've ever had about myself. So it was like 24 hours since childhood of every negative thought I've ever had. I mean, it was absolutely brutal. I popped up off the mat after 24 hours. It just was like, what the hell was that? And it was beautiful. The facilitator goes, look, don't make meaning of it. It was a rite of passage. You completed it. And I was like, okay, I felt so called to this medicine. I knew it did what it needed to, but I was just trying to process, make sense of it. And it wasn't until 2 days later, I was just aware of this unbelievable sense of peace. My mind was just quiet. And I was talking to the facilitator, and he said, Joe, I had the same journey as you. I had to face 10,000 judges. And he goes, but then afterwards, I went to this big party. So I walked in the door and there's music and hundreds of people. He goes, and I realized my mind was still. And what had changed was that second voice was gone. So it's like we talk to ourselves in our conscious mind, but then there's that voice running nonstop. I call her
the hard drive that runs the show was talking.
Yes. Yeah. That second voice is like, why'd you wear that? She looked at you weird. What are you doing here? You should have said, and it just never shuts up. He's like, it was gone. And I just went, oh my God, that's it. It's not here anymore. It is quiet. Like I'm finally at peace and at choice. And I mean, it's funny because I want to latch onto it, right? Like, is it going to come back? Do I have to do this again? How long is it going to be this way? I can feel myself wanting to do that. But the reality is, it's been a couple of weeks now and it's still quiet. It's so,
I don't know. I do a lot of lectures at the psychedelic conventions, and matter of fact, I'm lecturing on the 14th up in Orlando about psychedelics. I was at dinner with Rick Doblin from MAPS.
Beautiful.
And Paul Stamos from that, does psilocybin.
Yes.
Okay. Really cool people. We were talking about all this stuff. And the problem with psychedelics, okay, there's the pros and there's the cons. The pro is what you experience, things like that. The con is people that are do-gooders really mean well and they really want to help, and they're good facilitators in a way. But the problem is safety, number one. Okay. And if you don't have an environment of safety, okay, all the sitting in a jungle and laying on a mat and all that's wonderful. But the problem is you need to do pre and post integration therapy with people so they can get the most benefit out of it. Okay. And medicals to make sure they're appropriate for it, because it's like any other medicine. Some medicines you can't take, okay, because it just doesn't fit your DNA or your lifestyle or, how you are medically. So if that's not part of the journey, they're playing Russian roulette. I'll be honest with you.
I have to ask a question because, Joe, beforehand we talked about you're in recovery for 12 years. Why are you still seeking these things out? What are you doing? It seems like a lot of people after 12 years of recovery, they have like one path, they stay on it, they don't look around. Now, I don't agree with that, but that's what most people do. What is it that makes you want to expand your thinking out?
It's a beautiful question. Well, I work with people, and so I'm always learning, and I'm always doing deeper layers of work, and I'm always exploring alternative treatments. And last year, my very dear friends lost their son. So he had just graduated university in Colorado. He had gotten some drugs off the dark web, tested them for fentanyl, and taken them. His roommates report that he said he was nauseous, didn't feel good. The drugs didn't work. He just wasn't feeling well. But because they had tested for fentanyl, they felt confident that he was okay. It just was like a bunk pill. So he went to sleep and never woke up. So it took 4 months to get the autopsy back because it's a new substance. So this just hit the United States. He was the 4th reported death because, of course, if they don't know the substance, they can't test for it. So it took a long
tranquilizer. It was a tranquilizer, right?
Yeah, it's a new. I can give you the exact name. I'll need to look, but it's.
I can't even say it. I know the name you're talking about. I can't even pronounce it.
Yeah, so he was the 4th death in the United States, and it just, when you're so close to a family and you see and feel their pain, that's really. I'd been called to iboga for a while, and then when that happened, I said, I want to do this medicine. I want to be able to talk about it. I'm reading all the literature. It seems like it has amazing potential as an option for people who need treatment. And what we're doing right now doesn't work. So I never talk about anything I haven't done myself. So I'm like, I'm getting on a plane, I'm going in the middle of the jungle, and I'm going to do this. And after sitting there, it's like doing the most intense 12-step work you've ever done in your life.
It's a year of treatment. It's a reset for your brain.
Yeah, it is. It's a beautiful reset. And that's not to say that I don't have my own shit that I'm still working on. Like I drink way too much coffee. I'm like, maybe that'll help with it. There's some.
Oh, wait. There's no such thing. There's no such thing.
There's no such
too
thing.
Much coffee. Okay.
Then I'm fine.
Well, Joe, what you said was interesting. You only can take people as far as you are. All right. So, if you're not, what I learned in life is that, what I know, I don't know.
Right.
And as long as I remain teachable, okay, and a student, I can become a good teacher.
Yes.
So, and that's what life's about. It's about constantly learning one moment at a time. Forget about one day at a time because things happen in moments. And ibogaine and psilocybin and MDMA and ayahuasca, they're all wonderful medicines when used appropriately.
Right.
Problem is, a lot of people don't use it appropriately, okay? And it causes a bad rap to something that could really help people. Like the ibogaine, like I was telling you, that, there only are certain places that do it really, really well. And what I mean by well is it's a total comprehensive approach to treatment, not just, utilize Mother Iboga, okay? And the bottom line is that there's one place I know, it's called Beyond, and it's in Mexico. Okay, you can look it up. They're really good people. I know the owners. They really do really well. They have a cold plunge, and they do all kinds of different wellness too, and things. And you need an aftercare program also with people that join a group, that people that do ibogaine together and share their experiences, strength and hope. Ibogaine's a door opener. What people don't realize is that, to me, talk therapy is wonderful. It's important, okay? But it deals with what I call the software of the brain, okay? Medicines like ibogaine deal with the hard drive, and that's what's driving everything. So until you get to the hard drive and to regroup and create new neural pathways, you're going to wind up eventually going back to where you came from. So it's like working out. So now you did Ibogaine. Okay, great. It's been 2 weeks. You're going through all these experiences, but you don't have to do Ibogaine again, but you have to continue, as you already do, the process of self-development, spirituality, and all that. It's like going to the gym. Just because you went to the gym for a month doesn't mean you're going to be in shape for the next year. Okay. So those are important things. And you got to take care of your gut. Are you familiar with where depression and anxiety can come from?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know about the gut-brain axis, right?
Yes.
A lot of people don't know about that. They don't realize that if you have leaky gut or H. pylori infection, hyperglycemia, low testosterone,
Yeah.
okay, or high testosterone cause depression, anxiety, closed-head injuries, same thing, cause behavior problems, all these different things. People aren't looking at it. They're only doing talk therapy. You have to look at people comprehensively. Otherwise, you're missing a boat.
Yeah, and you're reinforcing the story. If we're not addressing those underlying issues, let's say it's a mineral deficiency, even it's something of that nature, and they're just sitting there retelling all of their trauma, all of their problems. It's sitting in that energy. And I love how you speak about these medicines, because set and setting is everything. When I was at the university, we had a student that was making ayahuasca in the dorm rooms, and it was just like, holy shit, what is happening right now? And I love that we're talking about these medicines. I love that they're more available. I have no doubt that they will be legal soon, which is so exciting. And there's no such thing as a magic pill, but that is so much of our culture, is that quick fix. It's like when you hear people say, oh, I did, ayahuasca one time and then I didn't have any problems anymore. It's like, what world are you living in? These are beautiful tools, but the ceremony really begins when the ceremony ends. And it's like, now how are you going to show up in your life and anchor these beautiful experiences and not go back into those habitual patterns, which will, of course, lead you right back to where you were, because wherever you go, there you are.
You do realize that Ibogaine is a Schedule 1 drug. Okay. Now, here's the funny part. Oh, it's not even really funny. What makes up a Schedule 1 drug means it's highly addictive, number one, which is like stupid. Okay. And it has no medical value. Yeah. Another stupid thing. Okay. If you want to get off of heroin, alcohol and coke and all this other stuff, it takes 7 to 9 days, depending on how much you're using, what you're using, and all this other kind of stuff. All right. And detox, which is not really detox, is stabilization. Detox means to detoxify, not to put other toxins in. And the funny part is that Ibogaine is 24 hours. And you detox. And you don't have any cravings. And you have minimal withdrawal symptoms. Hello? What are we missing here? Well, it's the pharmaceutical companies that are driving all this baloney. And it's great for people like yourself. I did Ibogaine also. Because I've been doing integration with people, but I never did Ibogaine. So my son had anxiety, severe anxiety. He wouldn't even get on a plane. I'm a hypnotherapist. I do holotropic breathing. I do all this other kind of stuff. Anyway, I taught him how to meditate. I taught him how to calm his breath. I took him to Mexico. He did the treatment, got rid of his anxiety, and I did it with him. I figured, what the heck? I might as well do it and see what's going on. You get that buzz sound when you start, and
yes.
Off to the races you go.
Yeah.
All right. I want to ask you, I mean, we've also, if you want to know more about Ibogaine, we talked to Dr. Deborah Mash in a previous episode. So look that up, everybody, if you want to know.
Look it up
even
on
more.
YouTube.
It was a previous episode. But this, I'm really curious about this. You had a successful, hey, that's not coffee. I thought you drank coffee all the time. Why are you drinking water? Hey, there you go.
Double fisting, always. Some habits die hard.
All right, that a girl.
I always say drugs bad, coffee good. But you had a successful modeling career, and it's obvious why. And you look like you were probably in a position where everybody around you was probably doing drugs and stuff. What was it that made you break away from that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, when I finally got out of the industry, I was working a lot for Playboy. I had a beautiful place in Newport Beach. My boyfriend played for the Chargers. I'm just living this life, right? Like that from the outside to some people would look really glamorous, just tons of money, like stupid money. And I woke up one morning on my kitchen floor. I had no idea what day it was. I knew I needed to get to Ohio, of all places, for a shoot, but I was so suicidal. It was a different level of hopelessness than I had ever felt. And I knew I needed to go to rehab. I had no choice. It floored me, literally. So it was beyond my control. I couldn't even do it anymore. So I went to one of those $100,000 bougie ass, just awful treatment centers that don't do shit. It's basically you pay them $100,000 and you get AA, which is supposed to be free. But what it did is it kept me alive. So for 90 days, I got to just check out during that time, because they're just feeding you, Ruffles, potato chips, and Sunny Delight, which is, so pure sugar and grease and carbs. So
where the hell did you go for 100,000 they're feeding you?
Seriously, I am not kidding you. That was all I had. And I had to detox for 10 days. Like, people look at me all the time and they say, what'd you go through? It was some light shit. Like, no, I was going to die. I was going through DTs. I've been in jail. I mean, I was so sick. My addiction almost killed me.
So obviously alcohol was a big part of that addiction then.
Yeah. I mean, for me, even the drugs, that wasn't even the problem. I mean, I don't want to say it wasn't an issue, but I would do coke to try and not drink. Alcohol was my thing.
People usually drink to come down from the coke so they can do more coke.
Yeah, no, I was.
She does everything backwards. She does everything backwards.
You're a backwards girl. All right, I got it.
I am. I own that. Yeah, and I still am. But so I gained 50 pounds in rehab. So I had just shot for FHM magazine, and then fast forward to 2 months later, my dad comes to family week and walks right past me. He doesn't even recognize me. So it was a gift, though, because putting that much weight on, I couldn't just go back into the modeling industry, which, of course, I would have just instantaneously gone back to what I was. Because for me, I actually had a really good experience working for Playboy. I was so sad to hear about all the allegations and all of the experiences that women came forward and spoke about. For me, I was always treated with respect in that company, with Playboy specifically. That industry is it's fucked, and I can talk more about that, but that wasn't my experience with them. I was treated with respect. I've been way worse sexually harassed in real jobs, corporate America, it was way worse in the real world. But gaining all that weight just ended my modeling career. Essentially, it forced me to do something different. So again, everything that happens that we hate is always serving us. And that is something I truly, truly believe. It is always happening for me. I'm in the middle of legal nonsense. 2 years ago, I left my husband. It's been a nightmare. And every single time, Mexico kicks it back to the United States. United States kicks it back to Mexico. I just can't seem to get through this process. I'm like, this is serving my highest, greatest good. And there will be a point in the future when I reflect back on this and I can see exactly why this was so perfectly designed for me.
It's interesting to talk about Playboy. I married a few times. 2 of my wives were Playboy bunnies. One was one of the jet bunnies that flew on Hefner's jet. That's my mother and my 2 kids. And, because we had the Playboy Club on 54th Street in Miami, and then we had the 79th Street. And they were pretty wild times. I mean, talking about the 70s, 80s, yeah, around that time. So it was pretty wild. And the girls went through a lot of hassles, too. You had to be certain standards, you had to be a certain way, and all this kind of stuff. And so a lot of politics going on, and a lot of manipulation of the girls and introducing them to the football players and the basketball players, and all the games that go on.
Yeah.
So I know I lived that with them.
Yeah, so, you saw it.
I saw it. Absolutely, I saw it. That's when I was using. So we're doing Quaaludes and Coke, and I never forget. I had a Halloween party at my home. I'm with a turban on, and I have a little toga, a sheet wrapped around me, and I got a tray handing Coke out and pills. And we had people coming from the Chicago club, the New York club, Miami club, coming to my house. My friends were begging me to come to the party. We had all kinds of Playboy bunnies running all around, and it was like hysterical. You know,
Yeah,
one of those crazy parties. You know, a lot of orgies. That's what that was back then.
Yes, exactly.
You know, all that crazy stuff. You know, I mean, that's just the way it was. I wouldn't change it for the world, Scott, actually. But anyway, but you know, I'm on a different journey now.
Yes.
I was one of those guys. I never got invited anywhere, good, bad, or indifferent. Just don't invite Jones. Don't invite Jones. I'm curious. You know, now you've got to change everything. Did you know right away you wanted to go into something helping people the way you are now, or was that a process?
You know, I did have a deep desire to help people, but I didn't know how. I was so lost. I was so newly sober, but I needed to get my life together. And so I thought, well, I'll go back to school because I've always been good at school. So I just thought I'll go get a master's degree. I know how to do that. So I went and I started off marriage and family therapy. And then I did some couples work and I was like more of a referee than a therapist. And I was just so put off by the whole thing. So I switched my master's to human development and family studies with an emphasis in addiction treatment. And then I started working in treatment facilities, and that was so heartbreaking. It is such a delicate balance to keep your heart open and to love people, and to not become callous, you know, for longevity. So I made the decision early on, I'm going to be so raw, vulnerable in it with people. And then when I feel that bitterness coming in or hardness, I'm going to do something else. And that's when I transitioned to teaching. So then I trained people how to be therapists at the university. I taught.
That's what I did too.
Counseling.
Problem is, I don't know if you realize this. What happened over time, and I've been doing treating addiction for the last 37 years.
Wow.
I've been in recovery now, coming up on 40 years of recovery.
Amazing.
And I watched the transition. And what happened was the mental health people were always trying to get into the addiction field because they were saying, well, the addiction people don't know anything about mental health. And the addiction people say the mental health people don't know anything about addiction. And actually, I never met an addict or an alcoholic that didn't have more than one addiction or didn't have a mental health issue.
Right.
Okay. So they cut out people that were like CAPs or, you know, certified addiction professionals and all this stuff. And they gave it to the mental health people, which unfortunately, a lot of them don't know shit about addiction.
Yeah.
And they're treating it in a different way. And they're not relating to the people because when you learn in school with mental health that you're not supposed to disclose.
Right.
How are you going to relate to somebody if you don't disclose? You know? I mean, don't make it all about you, but I mean, you have to be able to be in rapport with somebody for somebody to really want to listen to you. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like yourself. Okay, so here you are. You know, you're very open about what's going on. You've been through all of this, the hells that we go through as recovering addicts and alcoholics, and you know, and unfortunately, there's a shortage of good therapists. I was teaching at one of the colleges, group therapy, and it was like, I remember we did a little scenario in the group, and one of the people that were learning said, "Well, John, how does that make you feel?" I says, "You know what? I wouldn't even let you treat my dog."
Don't say that.
Yeah. How does that make you feel? Well, how the hell do you think it made me feel? I mean, like, you know, people become therapists, but they have no clue. They got to work on themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and then I look at people that do eating disorders, and they have an eating disorder.
Yeah.
That's quite apparent, you know? And I always, when I lecture, I always tell people, look, just because you quit drugs and alcohol, you still got this body, all right? And if you don't take care of yourself, all you're doing is changing seats on the Titanic. So you're not dying from drugs and alcohol. Now you're dying from obesity. You're dying from high blood pressure, diabetes, and all other kinds of sicknesses because this needs to be taken care of. God gave you the gift of life, whatever God is to you. It's what you do with that life is you give back to God or the Creator or whatever you want to call it. So people are not looking at recovery in a sense of recovery, not just from here up, and that's got to change.
Yeah, it really does, because stopping the substance is like putting a Band-Aid on a compound fracture. It just so step one. And, that's what we see with the dry drugs, people constantly in and out, slipping, relapsing. There is a true healing. I mean, I love Gabor Mate's question of what's right with the drug. And when we can really meet people in that place of what does this do for you?
Right.
And try to bypass the energy of shame and then start exploring, okay, so now you've done the hard work, you've gone through the withdrawal, you've stopped the substance, but now what? Well, now we know what you're looking for. We're looking for the experience of feeling whole, of being connected, of feeling love, of feeling safe. I mean, so much of it comes down to nervous system dysregulation. And that's what drugs allow us for.
They're chasing dopamine is what they're doing.
And dopamine, but it's also important to remember, it's like dopamine is the chemical of, oh, this thing is going to happen and I'm going to feel good about it, right? It's the thing out front of us.
It's the feel-good drug. That is serotonin.
It's satiation. So what we're really craving is serotonin, the feeling of being satisfied. The dopamine is the carrot outside of us that I'll be happy when. And we forget that what we want is to be able to go from seekers to finders. It's the experience of feeling at home in ourselves. And that is the lie of drugs and alcohol. It's always outside of us. We just care less.
Well, I work with Dr. Blum. He's the geneticist who found the main addiction gene, which is the DRD2 ALE1 variant gene. And just because you have that gene doesn't mean you're going to be an addict or an alcoholic. It means you have the propensity to be one. All right. But epigenetics can change the gene expression because of social environment. But what we look at it, we call it RDS, reward deficiency syndrome. And this because it's not just about drugs and alcohol, but eating disorders. You got people that shopping addiction, sex addiction, work addiction, anything that's out of balance, that you have addictive nature to it. People say, well, how do I know I'm an addict? I say, when you continue to do a substance or a behavior in spite of adverse consequences, maybe you need to take a look at it.
Yeah.
So, Joe, I want to ask you, no longer at university now. You're living a new life, but your website is up. What people want to seek you out? What are you doing to help people today? And it's just to remind everybody, it's on the screen, joeweatherford.com. Very simple. Go straight to our website. But what can you do for people?
Well, I do work with clients one-on-one. Most of them are high performers, and they do have some substance abuse issues, but it's rare. It's more intimacy, relationship coaching. That is what I help people with more so than anything now. Now, there is a lot of addictive behaviors, addicted to work, addicted to money, addicted to performing, addicted to all of these things that take them out of their relationship. So I primarily work with men, and that is what I am doing. I don't work with people in crisis in addiction anymore, but I will work with their families on codependency, how to hold space, setting boundaries. So I do work with people one-on-one, and then I speak a lot on addiction. So that is my true passion, is to spread that message. And I love the opportunity to do it because in an hour I can reach thousands of people. So it's more the butterfly effect, the magnitude of that. And I think it's important that there are role models out there, people like yourselves who are in long-term recovery that are happy, because I didn't see a lot of that. What I saw was people white knuckling it. And I thought, man, if I'm going to be sober and miserable, I'd rather be high and miserable. I'd rather be
well said. Well said.
What is the point? And
I'm glad there's people like you out here.
Yeah, we just have to talk about it. I mean, my life is beautiful. During COVID, my ex-husband and I owned a huge martial arts school. I was a professor at the university. Life was great. COVID hits, everything shuts down. I'm like, sell it all. Retire in Mexico, live on the beach, from a prison cell, like to this is a very, very interesting experience, like living in paradise. And I just think for me to share my story, and it's not that I don't deal with problems, but I learned how to sit in my shit. And it's like, you want to talk about sobriety and recovery, that's it. It's a feeling. And the second you learn how to drop in, regulate your nervous system through all of these different things that you've talked about, breath work, cold plunge, there's a million different tools. when you learn to be with yourself and acknowledge and love all parts of you, integrate them, and then when things arise, deal with it. You don't need to keep escaping yourself. I remember I was at a Eckhart Tolle seminar once, and somebody asked him what the key to happiness was. And he said, I just don't mind what happens to me. And at that time, I was like, that's crazy. I mean, that's insanity. I can't even imagine. But it's true. The more we're just in flow with life and we choose to see everything as this beautiful opportunity for grit, resilience, you know, and that's the other thing. Resilience is great, but grit is beautiful. You know, like even going through my divorce, I'm like, okay, bring it. 3D chess. How am I going to maneuver this? You know, it's like you make it a game instead of that victim mentality, poor me, this shouldn't have happened. That, you know, nobody deals in that shit. You know, stop it. I'm sorry. It's like, meet your grief with reverence. When I'm holding space for somebody going through something, I am all there with them in that feeling, in that grief. Feel it, but do it with reverence, you know, and then move forward. It's so important.
I noticed in a lot of your writings and online, there's a very big lean on self-love and really taking care of yourself. Is that kind of the foundation for what you do?
You know, it is. So after I went to rehab initially, there was a period where I started drinking again, and it got really bad. At the time, I was dating a guy that played for the Yankees. So then we were down in Tampa for spring training.
You just had all the sports teams, I guess, right? You got the football, you got the baseball, you got.
I sound like such a pro-ho. There was only a handful of them, I swear. But, you know, whatever. It was what it was. So I'm in Tampa. We get in a huge fight. We're at a nightclub. I meet this other dude. I'm trying to make him jealous. We exchange numbers. Anyway, I'm going to fly home early. So I get a room at the Intercontinental. I text this dude and I'm like, hey, meet me for dinner. I really didn't want to be alone, but I didn't necessarily want this new guy. And I wanted to make the other jealous. And it was just a myriad of bad decisions that came from a place of really a deep brokenness, emptiness in me. So this guy shows up. I had 2 glasses of wine, which for me, that was like breakfast, you know? So I was, for all intents and purposes, very sober. And I remember bits and pieces of the conversation. I forget how he got me to tell him my room number, but I remember that was part of the conversation. Anyway, he roofied me. I woke up in my hotel bathtub. I had been violently raped. You know, sheets were stripped. My phone cleared, wiped. I mean, this guy was a professional. And again, here is like the most awful thing that had ever happened to me. And it became the catalyst for me to get sober, because it was the first time in my life I actually felt compassion for myself. It took that for me to actually go, oh my God, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I love you. We're going to get better. You know, so that was the apex moment for me. And then I did go to rehab. I went to an aversion therapy clinic. So I'd go in this little room, they'd inject me with something that caused flu-like symptoms. And then I drink a entire water glass full of Epicac, which if you have kids and they eat something, you need to make them puke, you give them a tablespoon. Well, I slammed a water glass, and then I drank up to 20 glasses of the worst jungle juice you could ever imagine, like all just alcohol. You're drinking, violently vomiting for hours and hours and hours. And then they stick you in a little room with a towel soaked in alcohol, and they put it on your face. You just got to sit there and smell booze, and you're just vomiting violently.
You sure you weren't in a concentration camp? Maybe you were drunk. You didn't realize. You thought you were in treatment.
It's so awful. But what was cool was the next day they had you hooked up to an IV, and it was Propanol, which is, of course, what Michael Jackson OD'd on. But what they did is it was that and truth serum. You would wake up an hour later and then listen to a counseling session with your unconscious. So when you're in that state, they would say you don't drink, you know, you're listening to counseling sessions. It was 10 days. It was 10 days. I walked out of there, never wanted to drink again, never had a craving. I mean, like, people drink around me. It still makes me a little queasy. It was It saved my life. That's my passion for alternative treatments. It's so sad because corporation bought them and of course ruined it. And so now there is no shadle anymore. There's no aversion therapy programs in America anymore. But I contacted the medical staff and I have people that understand the protocol that could open another center if there was ever somebody interested in doing that and investing in it, because that was phenomenal for alcoholism. But again, when we go to why did I do Iboga, what drew me to it? I'm like, there has to be another option. I get hundreds of messages. Where should I go? You know, and the Meadows is a wonderful place if you have the money.
I'm familiar with the Meadows.
They do a wonderful job. Anyway, there's not a lot of options. So I was like, I have to go and experience this and then talk to people like you, find out where the safe, really, really done well places are and give people another option.
Yes. And unfortunately, we have a 70-year-old model that we keep doing over and over again and expecting different results.
Yeah.
We have a 5 to 8 to 10% recovery rate. People are dying. And we keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Yeah. And what it is, we're not looking at people comprehensively. We're not looking at them as individuals. We're just one shoe fits all. And that's the same. And thank God for people like yourself. Yeah. Because let me say something to you. And as far as being in this field for so long, speaking with you and the way you come across, it's not just your brain that I'm feeling. It's your heart and your soul. And that's what gets across to people. Because when you speak, I feel it. I don't just hear it. Now, hearing is biological, okay? But I'm listening to you, okay, which is a skill set. And that's because of the way you come across. So I'm sure you help a lot of people and you have a gift. And I'm not just saying that. Anybody knows me would tell you that. I don't do that. Okay?
No, he doesn't. He's mean.
I mean, and the bottom line is that I wish there were more therapists like that. Okay, because some of these therapists, they should be work in restaurants.
They're all just phoning it in. They're just, they're not even.
To me, it's not about money. Yeah. If you read, I don't know if you read my background. I started my treatment center with $300 and I sold it for $45 million in 2012. And I had partners. I had a team. This wasn't John's show. It was a team. Scott was part of that team. And so was Karen, his partner. We're helping God's kids, and I continue to do that. And the only way people listen to you is you have to have credibility. And what I've done is I'm fortunate enough to be with some of the top scientists in the world. And I'm currently in 80 medical and scientific peer-reviewed journals. And I work with guys that work with about 12 universities. All right. That's the only way people listen. I'm a kid from the South Bronx who only went to the 9th grade. Okay. I got left back in the 6th grade. I mean, my family was a mafia family. If you read about me, get my book, The Kid from the South Bronx Who Never Gave Up. My father was a heroin dealer. I used to be a drug dealer. I'm also a grandmaster of martial arts. So I used to teach the cartels, bodyguards, martial arts. I mean, I did a lot of crazy stuff.
I love it.
So, get the book because I like to read more about you. Do you have a book that you wrote about your life story?
I have not written it yet. That is coming. But yeah, I love that. And I love real and raw. But I also think it's important to have that balance with that more analytical academic. Like it's beautiful when people have both, like life experience, street smarts, you're relatable, you understand it, you seek knowledge, but most of all, it is embodied. And that's what's seriously lacking. And you can feel it, right? You walk into a therapist's office and they got all their fancy bougie plaques from Harvard. They got this big ass desk. So you stay far away from them. They're over you. Not a single photo showing their life at all. You'll never know them. They got their little fucking clipboard with their questions. That is nonsense. Nobody.
Don't run for the nearest exit.
Right. No, it's like we want somebody to be in it with us. And that takes just an insane amount of self-work to be able to do that. And it's beautiful because I feel that from both of you as well. And what you're doing is so important. And when I heard about my friend's kid And this new drug that just hit America that they are predicting is around 400 times more deadly than fentanyl.
Oh yeah, it's bad. Listen,
trouble.
You know, it's really bad. You know, if you go, I think we're kind of like kindred spirits, you and I and Scott. Go to my website. Go look at something. See if I can help you with anything, or you can help me, and we can, you know, do something. To me, it's very important when I meet a gem. I consider you a gem because you have that feeling and that essence of what it takes to touch another heart. And I don't come across that too often. So that's how I come across with Scott and with his partner, Karen. Incredible people, talented, and they really care. Look, you got to make money too. So, you know, and the problem is with counselors that want to open up treatment centers, they're all altruistic, and then they go to business. You know, you have to have a business sense also, but you also have to put the client first. And that's what we always did. We had this company called G&G Holistic. People used to laugh at me because I used to do hyperbaric medicine. We did acupuncture. We did lymphatic massage, colonics, light and sound therapy, micronutrient testing, gut testing, heavy metal testing. We did aromatherapy, all these different methodologies besides group, individual, family therapy, trauma work. We had a faith-based track. We did all this stuff. And everybody said, hey, go to Giordano, he'll give you vitamins, it'll cure you. And I wasn't saying that. I was saying you need a comprehensive approach. Yes. People are out of balance. You need to rebalance them. So you're doing the same thing. So I love it.
I love it too. And I thank you so much. And I fully received that. And it does mean a lot coming from you. And I had one experience that sums up treatment so well for your listeners, I think. So I had just started in a recovery treatment center. My first client was a woman. She was 28 years old. She had been a meth addict for 15 years. She lived with her boyfriend that made meth. Her mother had started prostituting her at age 8. So she'd been on the streets and homeless basically her entire life. So now she's sitting in front of me and I've got her for 28 days. And then she's going to go right back to her meth-making boyfriend. She has no skills. She has, you know, an insane amount of trauma to process, you know, and that's not even, I'm just talking about her soul, not her physical body, which, it's just insane. And then people are like, well, you know, we had her go to treatment and she relapsed. Of course she did. If nothing changes, nothing changes. And so that holistic approach is so important. And for people that have been in long-term recovery and addiction isn't even your thing, it's like, use these tools to then expand into greatness. You know, it is one thing to just hit your baseline, right? Like, okay, I'm not in chaos anymore, but it's like, now what's possible? And that's what gets me really excited because aftercare at our treatment center that I just started again, being part of, we have aftercare for life. As long as you want to come, okay, and we're alive, you can come at no charge. You know, 2 days a week. We have a spiritual on Tuesday night, which I'm also a pastor. I'm also a traumatologist. So I work with officers, police officers that have been in shootings, women that have been raped, molested, all that kind of stuff. And my partner is also a world-renowned speaker. He's a pastor. And so we have our alumni one night, and we have our spiritual night that people can come and listen. And it's really a cool place to work, and I really enjoyed it. I've been there 100 days now. And, you know, they're hobbling along. We just need help, you know, getting clients and getting the right payer mix because the insurance companies are screwing everybody. Right. It's terrible out there. It really is.
Guys, we're running up against it on time. I hate to do this, but Joe, I got to tell you, your curious nature about this isn't it. There's got to be more. There's always more. We love that. And that's how things are going to change.
I'd like to have her again if we can.
Yeah, we will. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I was going to ask Joe, I have my own, I have about 10 other shows that I do personally. Wow. Sober Life podcast is all about the joys of recovery. I want to ask you, would you be on that show with me sometime?
I would absolutely be honored.
Yeah. It's just all about the joy, because if you're not having joy, then why are you even doing it?
Yeah. What are you doing?
So I'll give you a text. I'll shoot you a text about that. But we appreciate you being on. We appreciate your curious nature. Again, you're one of those people that knows the deal. What we knew yesterday, we're not going to know tomorrow. It's going to be something different. So just always keep looking. I hope one day there is a panacea. I hope one day we do find one thing that works for everybody, and we're all out of freaking business. I would love that.
Yeah.
But we know that's not the truth. And what we also know is, like John said, what we're doing isn't working. When we've got 85, 90% of the people who seek treatment are not being successful, that's a problem. So we need to do something. I'd like to give a shout out to I lost my wife to fentanyl 4 years ago. And just giving a shout out to her spirit, because hearing you talking about this stuff and about how other people are still suffering, we need to keep doing that. We need more awareness out there. So it's really important. John,
right.
Final thoughts?
You know what? It's been a pleasure doing this podcast with you. I'm going to go to your website. Go to mine, John, the letter J, Giordano.com. And you can see some more stuff. And maybe somehow you can figure out we can do something together if you like. Whatever way I can help you. Or vice versa.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Joe, is there any message you want to send out to the people watching right now? Maybe some of them are questioning whether they can actually change their life or not.
Well, two things come to mind. The first is when we're even talking about this pill that would just make it better. It's like, remember that adversity is what gives us texture, like it's our opportunity to really find out what we're made of. And if you think about a video game, if there's a video game where you just passed every level, there was no bad guys, no hills to fall off, whatever, you wouldn't play it, it'd be the most boring game ever. So it's like the adversity is what makes the successes mean something. So if you're in the middle of that, embrace it. Look at this as this is my moment, this is my moment. And the second thing, I really appreciate that reflection of curiosity, because that is what I believe we need more of, is compassionate curiosity, and how do we just explore what's going on within with that layer of compassion. And the second that I trust myself and can sit back into myself and breathe, it doesn't matter what's going on around me. Then I get to be more at choice with it. And that is my hope for people, is to be at choice.
All right.
Thank you so much. I've always said the longest line at the amusement park is not for the monorail, it's for the roller coaster. We like to be tossed and twisted and jumped around. So why not enjoy the same ride that life gives us every day? Enjoy the ride. Put your hands up in the air and scream.
All right.
Everybody out there, thanks for joining us. Reminder, please like this show. Hit the subscription button and leave comments for us. It's very important that you do that. John, you take care, my friend.
Okay, baby.
Joe, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Everybody out there, we'll catch you
Joe.
next time right here on Beat Your Addiction. Bye-bye. Please, 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 to like this program, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends. And don't forget to leave comments, too, because we want to know what you think, or if there's questions that we're not answering here for you on this podcast. And John, you do this. I mean, this isn't about John wants to be famous. This is about, you've got a lot of information. You want to make sure people learn and find out things, right?
There's a lot of information out there that most people don't even realize is out there. And, like I said earlier, my son almost died from this disease. So did I, and so did my wife. And I'm out there to share information to improve recovery outcomes, because there's only a 5 to 8, maybe a 10% recovery rate.
That's why, John, we've been, I've been around recovery for almost 40 years, came in and out a few times, but been around a long time. You've been around a long time. Why are we still at that 10% range? Shouldn't we be at 50, 60% by now?
Unfortunately, the insurance companies don't care about addicts and alcoholics and mental health people. And it's all about money. So the insurance company's job is not to pay treatment centers, and the treatment center's job is to get paid. And unfortunately, what happens is the insurance companies keep paying for things that don't work very well. Now, they work for some people. I'm not saying they don't. I'm one of those people.
Right.
Okay. There's a third rule. A third of the patients will get better regardless of what they do and where they are. But the other 2/3 won't. And, when you really look at it, okay, it's really sad. They don't pay for a lot of things because they say it's a medical model, Scott, but it's not. It's a psychological model.
Right.
Because they only talk about trauma, which is important, and different behavioral problems and low self-esteem and all this stuff is okay. That's great. We talk about all that. That's good. But there are other driving forces, and I say this in almost every podcast. We have a body. It's attached to the head, and what we look at is low thyroid cause depression and anxiety. I always tell people, don't believe me, just look it up. All right, low testosterone. We found out that 85% of our patients had low test and suffered from depression and anxiety. So you have to take that into consideration. And then you got leaky gut syndrome. That means your gut is perforated and those toxins go into your bloodstream, can cause depression and anxiety and a toxic effect. Then you got H. pylori infection. And then you got hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, especially for alcoholics, because alcohol is sugar.
Yeah, it turns itself into
all
sugar.
of this stuff causes depression and anxiety. Closed head injuries. How many addicts have fallen and hit their head, or played football and got their head hit and had concussions, and all of this stuff causes behavioral problems. Just look at the football players, by the way.
Yeah.
Can cause addiction and suicidal ideation. So then you got heavy metal toxicity, which, Flint, Michigan, look what happened with them. What was they had lead in the water, and people were, it was really interesting. I was in Italy and we went to Herculean. That's where the volcano, blew up and covered Herculean, and all the people died. And they found all these this information about most people only lived to about 35 years old. And they had mental illness.
Yeah.
And the reason why, which is really interesting, is the Romans were known for plumbing, among other things. And what they used for pipes was lead. So they had lead poisoning and not even realize it.
John, we can even take that back to colonial days here in the United States with the pewter. Everybody drank out of pewter cups.
Right.
They ate on pewter plates, which pewter, the main ingredient in creating pewter, is lead. So they were getting, and people didn't live that long. I mean, I'm not sure what the real life expectancy is anymore. I'm not sure where it's gone, but it's gone higher. We're living longer.
No, it's supposedly in the 70s,
Yeah.
I think maybe 78.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm 78. I don't know.
Nice job. It's called yourself out.
What do you mean? That's it?
Time to go.
See you later, alligator.
This will be our last show. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but I mean, if you take care of yourself, there's very few things. It's not like you need to be like a super guru to take care of yourself.
No.
But a lot of these things are almost like common sense things, but people just don't apply them, for taking better care of your body. Let's talk about that for a few minutes, because you mentioned a few things with the gut and everything else.
Yeah, but how do you fix it?
Regular people even are having these issues. Let's forget about with
forget
addiction.
about addicts. And
everybody's, because people are eating bad food. They're not taking care of themselves. They're not exercising. So what is a plan to just become a better welled person?
Okay, first of all, you have to look at what you're eating. Okay, food is energy. Okay, plants get their energy from the sun. It goes into the plant, and then when you eat it, it goes into us.
Yeah,
we're made of energy. We're made of frequencies. We're made of energy. This is what we're really made of, and this avatar here is flesh and blood, but it's driven by energy. So there's such a thing as NAD. Now, NAD is a coenzyme that is utilized because it's the fuel for your mitochondria. Now, your mitochondria is the engine for every cell in your body. Okay, so if you don't have the proper fuel, okay, the body's not going to run very well. It's just like the kind of food a lot of people eat, like, processed food, a lot of sugars and all this stuff. It's like putting diesel fuel in your gasoline engine. Now, we all know what that's going to do. Okay, but it's fuel, but it's the wrong kind.
Right.
So, even for those people who don't have money, you can definitely go and have salads, wash your lettuce, wash everything, because you got all kinds of chemicals maybe on it. All right. If you can't buy organic, at least wash them and do as best you can. Okay. There's beans that you can eat. There's lentils and nuts and stuff like that to get your protein. Protein is extremely important because protein helps with neurotransmission in your brain. Your gut, you need to go get probiotics, prebiotics. There's a company that makes really good ones called Your Biotics, Y-O-U-R Biotics. Look it up. It's live cell. Some of these other companies are baloney. They don't have live cells and they're just dead. So
how would you know which companies to buy from? Is there any way
that's why I said Your Biotics.
Okay,
is
Your
the one.
Biotics.
When you're buying nutrients, do your best to see if it's a GMP lab. It's just one step above of what you can do. Maybe not the greatest, but at least it's a third party looking at the manufacturing.
GMP is good manufacturing practices, and it's the labs who create the vitamins, minerals, or the nutrients, whatever they're putting together. They actually voluntarily become part of this, where they have people come in and make sure they're doing the job.
What they say is in the product is in the product.
Because there's a lot of those vitamins out there. You're buying your vitamins at Walgreens, and it's like, I got magnesium. I got 10,000 pills for $4. Well, guess what? It's probably worth that, right? Because there's no guarantee what's in there.
I'm glad you brought up magnesium. Magnesium is very important. It works with over 300 processes in the human body. Now, if you take in magnesium glycinate and magnesium taurate, there's 10 different kinds of magnesium. Those two magnesiums help with depression and anxiety, believe it or not. Okay? So, there's a lot of things out there. Your B vitamins, extremely important to take. Also, there's a product called Protovite. Now, Protovite is a product with nanotechnology that it's a liquid that you put in your mouth, you squish it around, and you swallow it.
And again, reach out to us. Don't forget to like this show, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. For John Giordano, I'm Scott Jones. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you next time right here on Beat Your Addiction.
Bye.